Hey, Allison, how you doing? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Notice the edges are a bit uneven. That, with if you use the T-square to set up your baseline, then I think that the way this was shot, presumably you shot this with your camera, and there may have been a little tilt on your camera because this is not a level. That baseline is not level, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you definitely want to make that level. So let's go ahead and see. I want to see. I also wasn't surely ready to put my mean line with all those curves. Professor, can you please help me? Yes, I can. So this is the way I would do it. Okay, so let me zoom in here a little bit. I would set this up like, and I set this file up basically to address your questions here. But this is Fire and Ice, which I consider this to be professionally kerned in a title setting. Kerned and tracked. So we've got kerning right here. Let me just pull my tools over here. We've got kerning between the letters, and we've got tracking between the words. Okay, so right now I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so where do we place our baseline? And of course we place our baseline right underneath the straight serifs, right? And so as we can see, there's the overshoot right there. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so there's the baseline sitting on the serifs. And over here we see the overshoot, right? So setting a baseline is really easy. It's right underneath the base serifs for the lower serifs for the straight parts of the letter forms. Okay, now the cap line, of course, again, is really easy because you set it right on top of where the cap line where the top of the cap line, the highest points of the cap line, right? So technically, that's the straight part of your uppercase letter. So as we can see, laying the cap line down, right now we connect the I and the F, and I'm in Illustrator. We get this cap line, and we can see the D reaches above, the ascender for the D reaches above the cap line, right? Pretty fascinating. And that is optical relationships. Okay, and then so the mean line's a little bit different. What you want to do when you set your mean line is you want to set the mean line so that you are showing overshoot. Okay, so let's do this. So when you set your mean line, you're just going to place it just somewhere where you could have a little bit of overshoot. Right now, mine's probably a little bit low. So if I select that mean line and bring that up just a touch. This might even be a little bit, that's a little bit high because we're not showing overshoot there. So you get the idea, right? And that's how you would place your mean line. So in this project or this assignment, I would definitely place the baseline first, make sure that's perfectly horizontal, all right, perfectly level. Then I would place my cap F, get my cap line, draw that perfectly parallel to the baseline. Then the mean line, I wouldn't draw that mean line until I got a couple of letter forms in place. The mean line really you don't really need the mean line as long as you're placing your letters accurately on the baseline and accommodating for just that little bit of overshoot on the curved letter forms. The mean line you can go ahead and place later. Okay, so that's how I would set it up. Now listen, and I am saying, yes, I've got an Illustrator file open where I set this assignment up, Fire and Ice. I tracked it, I kerned it. To me, it looks perfect. I put my baseline, my mean line, my cap line. So, I mean, theoretically, this is exactly what you want. However, I don't want you to do this. I do want you to do this. I want you to set this up, but I don't want you to set this up and then trace over this. I want you to set this up for reference so you understand how to set it up in Illustrator or InDesign. Then I want you to use this as reference and go back and trace your letters manually, right? Because technically that's the assignment. It's not a digital assignment. I don't mind you setting up digitally, as I said, for reference. So, and if you do want to set it up, let's just take a look real quick at my settings here. So I've got Fire and Ice. Let's take a look at my character panel right here so we can see kerning right here and tracking right here. So kerning between F and I is -50. I and R is -25. R and E is -10. Okay, and then tracking between Fire and is at -75. Kerning between A and N is -10, and at D is -50. Tracking between D and I and Fire and Ice is -20. And then kerning between the I and the C and Ice is -50, and the C and E is 0. So those are the measurements if you want to set that up and take a look at it. But let's go ahead and take a look at yours. Now, the first thing I'm seeing here, of course, is, as we said, is that baseline is not on a horizontal. It's not a true horizontal. It's on a diagonal. So that's the first thing you want to do, is make sure that that is perfectly level. Okay, I think your letter forms look great. And actually, I think your word spacing and your letter spacing look fantastic. Right now, there's a couple of things. This is good. You've got that I right in there. That's great. Most students are really most students kern this word very, very loosely, Allison. And the reason why is because there's a reluctance to bring this I close to the F for two things. Number one, students not wanting that serif to be too close to that arm of that F and that serif, and not wanting the tittle for the I. That's what the dot is called, the tittle. Not wanting the tittle for the I to be close to that beak in that serif of the cap F. You've done a great job there, so that's fantastic, and that sets up your setup for success in your kerning for fire and ice. But we've got a couple of inconsistencies. And the space between F and I is great. I and R, you might close that down just a little bit, just a touch. I mean, if at all. But this is too tight right here, because what you're doing here at this curved letter form here, when you want to pull that out a little bit, because right now you're trapping that negative space in there. That the distance between that serif and this bowl of the E is really super close. So you're trapping that negative space and then drawing attention to that, which is what you don't want to do. I would loosen that up just a little bit. Word spacing is fantastic. I'll talk about that at the end, but letter spacing between the A and the N is good. N and D, again, you're kind of encroaching on that negative space here. So you're encroaching on the inside of that vertical line where that serif would be. So I would open that up just a touch there. Ice, I think, is kerned beautifully. I think that's really nice, but a little bit loose. The overall spatial relationships are good, however, a little loose. Let's pull that in a little, pull that in a little, not much. All right, word spacing itself right now. The illusion. Now, notice I'm saying the illusion. I'm not out over here measuring this distance, because, as we know, that's not how we gauge letting and kerning. It's all based on how it looks. What I'm saying right here is that the illusion is that this space here is less than this space here. It seems that this space is greater, right? Why? Because of these curved letter forms are allowing more volume in here. It's the same thing as kerning. So we want to close that down a little bit, leave that the same. So the reason this looks like it's not as wide is because you've got these straight letter forms. Remember, straight letter forms have the widest distance. Curved letter forms should have a little less distance. And that holds true in tracking, too, when you're spacing your words. So I would bring this a little closer to the A, a little closer to the E. Other than that, I think you're good to go. So, as I said, don't hesitate. If you want to set up a digital file to use it for reference, have at it. I think that students that do this are yielding better success. I really do. And I mentioned this back in the banana exercise. Remember, I said, hey, if you want to go ahead and set this up digitally as reference, not to trace it, that'd be cheating, right? But based on the assignment requirements, but setting up for reference, I have no problem with that. All right, Allison. Any questions at all, please let me know, and I'll be glad to clarify. All right, good job. Thank you.